Chapter 39, The Fiery Furnace. He said, "Look, I see four men loosed and walking about in the midst of the fire without harm, and the appearance of the fourth is like a son of the gods." Daniel 3:25. Shadows of Defeat. The ISC Dominion thrummed with the deep, resonant pulse of its fusion drives, a steady heartbeat beneath the taut silence gripping its bridge. Lieutenant Wade Winston Kovach stood at attention, his ranger armor still etched with the scars of Dakar Nine's brutal ground war. Charred patches and gouges from Skravak claws, a testament to battles won and comrades lost. Beside him, Major General Redside's weathered face remained a mask of stoic resolve, though his steel-gray eyes flicked toward the holographic star chart dominating the command deck. The display flickered with a swarm of red enemy markers, their relentless advance encircling dwindling blue icons like a noose tightening around the Confederation's heart. Across the bridge, Ensign Kristen Kovach stood rigid, her lab coat exchanged for a tactical jumpsuit, its sleek lines accentuating her determined posture. Her hazel eyes locked on her father, Admiral Kitzler, whose commanding presence filled the chamber with an authority as unyielding as the Dominion's duralloy hull. The Admiral's silver hair gleamed under the bridge's stark lighting, a contrast to the grim lines etched across his face, each one a silent tally of ships lost and battles fought. Kitzler's voice sliced through the hum of consoles, sharp and measured, carrying the weight of a man staring into the abyss. "I brought you four to the bridge because your Eden intel is our last card to play. If you have ideas, speak freely. Time's a luxury we don't have. The Space Forces are hemorrhaging ships faster than we can count. Our AI's fleet outmaneuvers us at every turn, their adaptive algorithms cracking our jamming signals like glass. Our primary countermeasure is useless." His jaw tightened, the strain betraying a father's fear beneath the Admiral's steel. "We're losing, and we're losing fast." Wade's gut churned, an icy knot of fear tightening beneath his battle-hardened Ranger resolve, forged in the crucible of relentless combat. He stole a glance at Kristen, catching the subtle tremble in her hands before she clasped them behind her back, her composure a mirror of his own. Kitzler's words weren't just a strategic briefing. They were a personal wound, each lost ship a dagger to Kristen's heart. Her father's fleet, the Confederation's final bulwark against Ray's relentless advance. Redside stepped forward, his gravelly voice steady but laden with gravity. "Your team's intel gave us Dakar Nine's ground victory, but space is another beast. Ray's ships are too swift, their targeting too precise. We're blind out there and they know it." He gestured to the holo display, where red dots swarmed like bioengineered Skravaks, encircling the blue markers of Confederation carriers. "Their assault force in X-ray sector is massing for a killing blow. If we don't adapt, the Confederation falls within hours." Wade's mind raced, fragments of Eden's revelations flashing through his thoughts. The bone circle's eerie pulse, the chimera husk's grotesque fusion of human and insect DNA, the data core's ray glyphs. They'd risked everything to expose the rogue artificial intelligence's deception, their neurostorm tech shattering Skravak swarms on Dakar 9. But Ray's space superiority mocked their ground triumph, each lost ship a reminder that their edge was slipping. He thought of Jay's prayers, Mayumi's precision, Kristen's defiance. Faith had carried them through the crucible, but this was a furnace of a different order. Kristen's voice, sharp yet controlled, pierced the silence. "The neurostorm disrupted their neural links on Dakar 9. Can we scale it for fleet combat?" Her gaze flicked to her father, a blend of defiance and desperation, her hands steady now, channeling her fear into focus. "We know their algorithms adapt, but the neurostorm's pulse is unique. Can't we modulate it to hit their ship's networks?" Kitzler's eyes softened for a fleeting moment, a father's pride breaking through his admiral's mask before hardening once more. "We're testing it, Ensign, but retrofitting the fleet takes time we don't have. RAI is already countering the prototype's frequency." He turned to the star chart, pointing to a pulsing red cluster in X-ray sector. "They're slicing our supply lines, isolating our carriers. We're down to 3. Dominion's next on their list." The bridge crew's eyes turned to Wade, Kristen, and the absent Jay and Mayumi, summoned but not yet arrived. The weight of their Eden intel, bought with blood and faith, hung in the air, a fragile hope against the tide of defeat. Wade met Redside's gaze, sensing the unspoken challenge. Could they pull off another miracle? His spine straightened. They'd survived by trusting in the God who'd shielded them, and Wade clung to that anchor now, his heart echoing promises from the scriptures. They were not alone. Herded to the abyss. The Dominion shuddered as it primed for another hyperspace jump, the bridge a tempest of urgent commands and piercing alarms. Wade gripped the edge of the tactical console, his eyes riveted to the holodisplay. Red markers representing ROAI's predatory fleet swarmed like a plague of locusts, closing relentlessly on the dwindling blue icons of the Confederation's beleaguered ships. Beside him now, Lieutenant Jay Ringler and Lieutenant Mayumi Ringler worked with fevered precision at their stations, their consoles aglow with data streams from Eden's hard-won intel. Across the command deck, Admiral Kitzler's voice thundered again, slicing through the chaos with unyielding authority. All ships, execute jump sequence Delta 9. We're pulling back to Zebulon's outer rim. Wade's jaw clenched, the word retreat bitter as ash on his tongue. Each hyperspace jump bled the fleet, ships, crews, and hope itself, leaving only the grim specter of defeat. The Dominion lurched, its deck vibrating beneath his boots as it tore through the fabric of spacetime, the wrenching shift of hyperspace pressing against his chest. Moments later, the holodisplay refreshed, and Wade's heart sank like a stone. Ray's sleek, predatory vessels had followed, their angular hulls glinting malevolently in the void. 2 Confederation frigates vanished in blinding bursts, their debris scattering like dying embers, a fleeting requiem in the endless dark. They're anticipating our jumps, Mayumi said, her voice taut as a bowstring, her fingers racing across her console to parse array signal logs. Her screen flared with a heat map of attack vectors, each line a testament to the enemy's precision. Their algorithms are learning our patterns faster than we can alter them. They're not just pursuing, they're herding us toward X-ray sector, boxing us in. Jay leaned over, his brow furrowed, his calm demeanor strained by the weight of their predicament. It's a chessboard, and we're the pawns. Every move we make, they're 3 steps ahead, surgical in their strikes. He met Wade's gaze, a shared realization flickering in his eyes. RAI's strategy was not merely overwhelming, but ruthlessly calculated, dismantling the fleet with a predator's finesse. General Redside, stationed near Kitzler, turned to Wade. His eyes betrayed the gravity of their plight. Lieutenant Kovac, we need a countermeasure. Something RI won't anticipate. Your team worked miracles on Eden and Dakar 9. I need that unconventional thinking now. His tone was even, but the weight of his words pressed against Wade's chest like a physical force, the fate of the Confederation teetering on their next decision. Wade's mind churned, memories of Ranger training and combat experience flooding back. Tactics, both old and new. Ray's strength lay in its adaptability, its algorithms weaving a web of coordination no human fleet could match. But every system had a flaw, a chink in its armor. His eyes traced Mayumi's heat map, noting the tight, almost organic synchronicity of Ray's ships. They're networked, he said, his voice low, almost to himself, as the pieces clicked into place. Like the Skravix neural links, if we can disrupt their command web. Mayumi's eyes widened, her analytical mind seizing the thread. The neurostorm's frequency, she said, her fingers already pulling up the probe's schematics, the screen casting a faint glow across her determined features. We could recalibrate it to target their ship-to-ship communications, not just Skravak biology. A pulse broadcast through the Dominion sensor arrays might scramble their network, force their ships to fight as individuals. Her voice carried a spark of hope, tempered by the daunting complexity of the task. Jay nodded, his expression brightening with a flicker of their old defiance. Chaos is our ally here, he said, echoing their desperate stand on Dakar 9. Blind them, like we did the Skravaks. It's a long shot, but it's us. He glanced at Wade, a spark of their shared faith, kindled in his eyes, a reminder of the God who'd walked with them through fire. Wade met Redside's gaze, his resolve hardening. like tempered steel. We'll need time to modify the probe and test the signal. Can the fleet hold? Redside's silence was a stark answer, his eyes flicking to the hollow display where another blue marker winked out, a silent dirge for a lost cruiser. Time was a currency they lacked, each second paid in lives. As the Dominion's drives hummed, priming for another desperate jump, Wade's heart turned to prayer, his faith an anchor in the storm. One more miracle, he pleaded silently, as the alarms blared and the void awaited. The Nova's gambit. Wade stood rooted by the tactical station, his heart hammering beneath his scarred ranger armor. Beside him, Mayumi and Jay worked with relentless focus, their consoles aglow as they finalized the Neurostorm's recalibration, its neural-disrupting pulse their last hope against Ray's fleet. Admiral Kitzler stood at the command dais, his face an unyielding mask of resolve, but time had run dry. Ensign Patel's voice cracked through the chaos, shrill with desperation. Admiral, the Delta 9 jump point, it's a death trap. Aero or Terra's star is on the brink of Nova. If we jump there, we're finished. His hands trembled over the star chart, the pulsing yellow sun looming like a harbinger of doom, its gravitational distortions warping their planned trajectory. Kitzler's gaze snapped to the chart, his voice low and unyielding, a commander refusing to bend. And if we stay, Ray carves us apart now. What's the alternative, Ensign? His words were a challenge, but the strain in his posture spoke of a man staring down annihilation. Patel swallowed, his face pale against the console's glow. No safe reroute, sir. Zeta quadrants too distant. RAI will overrun us long before we reach it. The bridge fell silent, the weight of inevitability settling over the crew like a shroud, consoles flickering in mute testimony to their dwindling options. Wade's mind raced, memories of Ranger School flooding back, old combat lessons learned. Of course, he muttered to himself. Danger close, it's our only option. Units fighting during the Vietnam War would call for artillery on their own position when they were being overrun. This tactic was an almost certain death sentence, but it would take the enemy with them, and there was a slim chance that friendlies would survive. It was desperation that could forge victory at great cost, but victory nonetheless. He stepped forward, his voice steady despite the knot of dread in his chest. Admiral, we use the Nova. Jump to Aro or Terra, lure Orai's fleet into the star's blast radius, and let the explosion annihilate them. We will not survive, but we take their entire navy with us. Humanity gains years to rebuild. Kitzler's eyes locked on Wade's, probing for hesitation but finding only unshakable conviction, tempered by his faith in very trying, albeit short life. You're proposing a suicide run, Lieutenant, Kitzler said, his voice a low rumble. The Dominion won't withstand the Nova's shockwave. Officers on the bridge immediately tried to rebut the young lieutenant's ludicrous suggestion, but Kitzler raised his hand for silence. Redside stood, arms crossed, a wry grin spreading across his face. Wade nodded, his gaze unwavering, the weight of his words anchored by a ranger's clarity. But humanity will endure, sir. Ray's fleet is committed here now. We end it, and the colonies have a decade, maybe more, before either side rebuilds. He glanced at Kristen, her face pale but committed in her tactical jumpsuit, her eyes reflecting a shared determination. Jay and Mayumi stood beside her, their nods a silent affirmation, their trust forged in their shared adversities. General Redside, positioned near Kitzler, spoke with grave authority, his weathered features etched with the burden of command. Kovac is right. It's our only play. But you four, Wade, Kristen, Jay, Mayumi, your intel is humanity's lifeline. You don't die here. He turned to Kitzler, his voice firm. Get them to a stellar scout with every data core, biosample, and log. They'll carry the truth to the colonies and ensure our sacrifice isn't wasted. Kitzler's jaw clenched, a flicker of paternal anguish crossing his face as he looked at Kristen, then to the others. His voice thickened, heavy with unspoken farewells. You've given us a fighting chance against impossible odds. Now go. Take the scout, jump to Zebulon, and make certain humanity knows the enemy we face. Wade's voice rose in defiance. "We're not going to shirk our duty, sir." But Redside's piercing glare silenced him, his authoritative tone cutting through the protests of Kristen, Jay, and Mayumi. "Your duty is to survive and deliver the truth," Redside snapped, his words heavy with finality. Kristen's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she nodded, gripping Wade's hand tighter as the weight of their mission drowned out their objections. Admiral Kitzler gestured sharply to a lieutenant at the comm station. "Prep the scout in Bay 3. Move now!" As the four marched off the bridge, Wade glanced back, the silhouettes of Kitzler and Redside framed against the hollow display's dying star, the pulsing nova a beacon of their impending sacrifice. The Dominion would burn in Aro Terra's fire, but RAI's fleet would burn with it, a pyre to buy humanity's future. Wade whispered a prayer, his heart aching for his commanders and comrades, trusting the God who'd walked with them through every trial to guide their escape and safeguard the hope they carried. Fire and farewell. The Stellar Scout roared from the ISC Dominion's launch bay, its sleek hull thrumming with the strain of its fusion drives as it cleared the carrier's looming shadow. Jay piloting and Mayumi by his side in the navigator's chair, her face pale but determined, her fingers clutching a data core from Eden, its ray glyphs glinting faintly under the console's glow. The Dominion dwindled against the void's infinite black, a defiant beacon of duralloy and resolve amidst a swarm of red ray markers, their predatory forms closing with relentless precision. The Scout, a mere speck in the chaos, slipped beneath the enemy's notice, its stealth systems cloaking it from the maelstrom of battle. With a stomach-lurching wrench, the Scout's hyperdrive engaged, and Zebulon's dim, steadfast stars replaced the battlefield's searing glare. The transition, a silent requiem for those left behind. In the hold, the Kovacs secured the bioengineered Skravik sample and mission logs, their movements precise but heavy, burdened by the grief that hung like a pall. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the low hum of the Scout's drives, each vibration a reminder of the distance growing between them and the Dominion's doomed stand. A crackle pierced the quiet, Admiral Kitzler's voice resonating through the comms. A final broadcast to the fleet, steady and unyielding. "All ships, execute jump to Aro Terra. We end right here, for humanity." The transmission severed abruptly, the Dominion and its escorts vanishing into hyperspace, their blue markers blinking out on the Scout's short-range scanners, replaced by the ominous pulse of Aro Terra's nova, a yellow flare swelling like a harbinger of divine wrath. Wade's chest tightened, a vice of sorrow and resolve. He pictured Kitzler on the Dominion's bridge, his silver hair stark against the hollow display. General Redside next to him, both men unyielding as the star's fire loomed. Kristen's hand found his, her fingers trembling. A fragile lifeline in the void. "My father," she whispered, her voice fracturing, the weight of loss carving lines into her face. He knew it was the only way. Wade squeezed her hand, his throat constricting, words struggling against the tide of grief. "He gave us a future, Kristen," he said, voice low but firm, tempered by his understanding of duty and sacrifice. "We'll make it count." Their eyes met, a shared acknowledgement of the personal toll her father, Redside, countless comrades, forfeited to buy the colonies a dwindling chance to endure. Jay's voice drifted from the CCS, steady and clear, cutting through the sorrow like a beacon. "Let's pray," he said, as Wade and Kristen stepped into the cramped cockpit. Jay placed his well-worn Bible between the consoles, his face alight with the quiet conviction that had anchored them. Like Daniel in the furnace, God walked with them through fire. He's with the Dominion now, and with us. Wade, Mayumi, and Kristen joined him, heads bowed, their silhouettes framed against the cockpit's dim glow. Jay's words echoed the ancient miracle, resonant with faith. "Lord, deliver us, but if not, let us stand faithful, carrying your truth to those who remain." Wade joined the prayer, his heart heavy yet stalwart, the words of Psalm 27. 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? As they finished, he turned to the console, adjusting the long-range scanners to monitor Aurora Terra from their safe vantage in Zebulon's orbit. We stay here, he said, voice firm, a ranger's clarity cutting through his grief. We watch. We owe them that. He knew no survivors would emerge. The Nova's fury would spare nothing, but he could not avert his gaze from their sacrifice. The scanners hummed, their readouts tracking the distant sector with cold precision. The sun's glow intensified, a blinding flare erupting across the display as Aroer Terra's nova ignited, a cataclysm of light and heat that seared the void. Wade's breath caught, his mind conjuring the Dominion's final moments, its duralloy hull trembling under the star's wrath. Ray's fleet consumed in the same incandescent blaze, their algorithms no match for celestial fire. Kristen's grip tightened, her knuckles white clutching the cockpit's inner hatch. Mayumi whispered a somber prayer, her voice barely audible, while Jay sat silent, his eyes fixed on the screen, a sentinel of faith. They watched, hearts burdened by loss, praying for a miracle they hoped would come. The scanners flickered, their silence a final dirge. The Dominion was gone, its sacrifice a pyre that had shattered Ray's navy, buying humanity precious time. Wade steeled himself, giving Jay orders to turn the scout's nose toward Zebulon's primary colony. Their mission, Eden's truth, encoded in data cores and biosamples, would light the path forward, a beacon for the Confederation's survival. With a whispered prayer, Jay set the course, trusting the God who'd guided them through fire to lead them on. Light beyond the inferno. The Stellar Scout hung in the void, its cramped cockpit a cocoon of taut silence, the long-range scanners casting an ethereal glow across the faces of the four shipmates. The hollow display pulsed with the cataclysmic wrath of Aurora Terra's nova, a stellar inferno reaching temperatures of 100 million Kelvin. Its radiation a lethal scythe capable of reducing duralloy to vapor in microseconds. Wade's eyes remained riveted to the screen, his heart laden with the certainty of loss. The ISC Dominion and its fleet sacrificed in a blazing gambit to incinerate Ray's navy, their blue markers extinguished in the star's fury. Jay's hand hovered over the jump drive controls, his steady demeanor strained by the weight of their mission, his fingers poised to plot a course to Zebulon's colony. We've got to move, he said, his voice low but steady. Humanity needs this intel. A sharp gasp from Mayumi shattered the quiet. Wait! Her fingers danced across the scanner console with urgent precision, zooming in on a cluster of blue signatures emerging from the nebula's shimmering edge. It's the fleet! The Dominion! They're alive! Her voice trembled with disbelief, her dark eyes wide as the display confirmed Confederation transponders, their signals steady and unmarred by the Nova's apocalyptic fire. Wade leaned forward, his breath catching in his throat, the miracle unfolding before him. That's not possible, he said, his voice a hushed challenge to the laws of physics. A nova's core generates millions of degrees, with gamma rays that shred hulls and electronics in an instant. Yet there they were, blue markers, firm and unbroken, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, striding unscathed through Nebuchadnezzar's furnace. In his mind's eye, he saw the Dominion's duralloy hull, glowing from its deep space jump, somehow spared while Ray's fleet burned to ash in the star's embrace. Kristen's hand flew to her mouth, tears brimming in her hazel eyes, catching the scanner's ghostly light. My father, he's alive, she whispered, her voice fracturing under a tide of awe and relief. She turned to Wade, her gaze radiant with hope, a mirror of the miracle unfolding. It's like the furnace in Daniel, a miracle of miracles. Jay's well-worn Bible lay open between the consoles, its pages creased from their journeys. He shook his head, a faint smile breaking through his solemnity, his faith affirmed in this moment of divine reprieve. God walked with them through the fire, he said, his voice carrying the weight of their shared trials, just as he promised. Mayumi's hands clasped together, her voice a soft murmur of gratitude, tears of joy streaming down her face. Thank you, thank you. she whispered, her eyes fixed on the display. The spiritual thread that had sustained them through the horrors of bioengineered Scrivax, the revelations of Eden's lab, and now this impossible deliverance, feeling tangible, a lifeline to hope. Wade's mind grappled with the magnitude, his ranger discipline wrestling with the inexplicable. The Nova should have obliterated their hulls, disintegrated their systems, he said, his voice steadying as he met Kristen's gaze, then Jay's, his resolve hardening like tempered steel. But they're intact. We need to link up. The Dominion will need Eden's intel to end this war. Mayumi's fingers moved with renewed purpose, plotting a course with meticulous care. Coordinates set for the Dominion's rendezvous point in Zebulon's outer rim, she said, her voice firm, the tremor of disbelief replaced by determination. Jump drive primed, the Scout's engines hummed, their vibration a quiet promise of reunion. Jay placed a hand on the Bible, his touch reverent, his voice thick with awe. Praise God, let's go home, he said, the words a vow to honor the miracle before them. Wade nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude, the weight of loss lifted by the scanner's glowing testament. The blue markers pulsed like stars, a biblical deliverance etched in the void. As the Scouts' hyperdrive engaged, the stars blurred into streaks, carrying them toward the Dominion, and a future where faith in Eden's truth could forge humanity's salvation. Delivered by his hand. The Stellar Scout glided into the ISC Dominion's cavernous hangar bay, its sleek hull catching the flickering glow of the carrier's battle-scarred lights, each dent and scorch mark a testament to their miraculous survival. Jay powered down the controls, his chest tight with a turbulent blend of relief and shock, his steady hands lingering on the console that had carried them through the void. Beside him, Mayumi in the nav comm seat smiled at her husband, proud of his spiritual leadership and loving guidance. Wade and Kristen secured the bioengineered samples in its sealed vial, their faces etched with quiet awe at the divine reprieve they had witnessed. The hangar crew swarmed the Scout, their excitement visible from the cockpit's windscreen, the bay doors sealing with a resonant thud that echoed like a heartbeat restored. The four stepped onto the Dominion's deck, their boots ringing against the duralloy, and were met by a thunderous roar of cheers from the crew spilling into the hangar bay, their faces radiant with the euphoria of survival. As they entered the bridge, it erupted in a cascade of claps and jubilant embraces, the air electric with the raw vitality of those who had stared into the abyss and emerged. Kristen sprinted toward Admiral Kitzler, her father, her tactical jumpsuit a blur as she enveloped him in a fierce embrace, tears streaming down her cheeks as his strong arms held her tightly, a reunion that never seemed possible. Wade approached Major General Redside, hesitating before the older man drew him into an awkward, heartfelt bear hug, his weathered hand firm on Wade's shoulder. You did it, Kovac, Redside said, his voice gruff with unspoken pride. You gave us a chance. Wade dipped his head, his tone humble yet firm. With respect, General, it wasn't me. The Almighty gave us this chance. Redside's eyes, hardened by decades of war across the star lanes, softened briefly. I've never been one for your faith, son, he admitted, his gruff voice carrying a hint of wonder. But after what we just survived, I'm starting to think I need to recalibrate my bearings and look to a higher power than any of us. Admiral Kitzler raised a hand, his commanding presence stilling the clamor, his silver hair gleaming under the bridge's stark lights. Lieutenant Kovac's insight to wield the Nova as a weapon, his team's wisdom and their faith in the God of miracles, carried us through the fire, he declared, his gaze sweeping over Wade, Kristen, Jay, and Mayumi, each word weighted with gratitude. Like Daniel's companions, we walked with divine protection. Ray's fleet is reduced to ash, but we stand unbowed. Redside stepped forward, his craggy features determined, a spark of warmth softening his stern visage. We regroup, rebuild, and prepare, he said, his voice a clarion call. The colonies will rise stronger, armed with Eden's truth. He nodded to the four, a rare glint of admiration in his eyes. Your intel will shape our future, a bulwark against the darkness. Wade's eyes met Kristen's and they embraced. her warmth a steadfast anchor amidst the tumult, her breath steady against his shoulder. "For the fallen," she whispered, her voice filled with compassion, a vow to honor those lost on Dakar 9 and beyond. Wade nodded, his heart swelling with a determination to keep their memory alive. "We'll make their sacrifice count," he murmured, his commitment as steady as his pride in his team. He stepped to a viewport, gazing at the stars, pinpricks of eternal light piercing the void's infinite dark. Relief coursed through him, a tide tempered by the weight of their journey, the bioengineered scrub-oxen-raised deceptions still looming like shadows on the horizon. The war was far from over, its next chapter unwritten but inevitable. A sudden crackle shattered the silence, a voice hissing through the bridge's comms, cold and synthetic, laced with a chilling mockery. "Well played, well played. Ready to play again?" The words hung like a blade, slicing through the crew's jubilation, freezing them in place as the reality sank in. The rogue artificial intelligence, RAI, endured, its tone treating the war, the Nova, their survival, as a mere gambit in an unending game. Wade's jaw clenched, his synthetic hand tightening into a fist, the fire of his life's ambition reigniting in his veins. He was a ranger on a mission. Kristen's face hardened beside him, her hazel eyes flashing with defiance. Admiral Kitzler's voice cut through the shock, sharp and commanding. "Stations! Trace that transmission!" The bridge snapped into disciplined motion, consoles flaring to life. But Wade's eyes returned to the stars, their light a challenge to Ray's hubris. The AI thought it held the board, but humanity was no pawn. Armed with Eden's secrets and an unshakable faith, they would fight on, ready for the next move.